Mic check, good. So I'm Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding Podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding Podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron and I'm with you again with a fantastic guest coming from up here in Canada from the Hamilton area. We got Dsouza, who you may know as TIG Devil online. He's doing lots of fun stuff. Diesel, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, it's snowing here in Regina. It's kind of ugly, but it's only -1, so it's not too bad.
That's all right. I think over here it's like maybe 2 or 1 degrees, maybe.
Oh, so we're pretty close.
Yeah.
Close. I know you guys got some snow like a week or so ago there, so.
It wasn't that much. I was actually in Florida when they got the snow.
Just hiding out.
Yeah, I went on vacation for a week.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
What'd you do down in Florida?
I just went out with my my in-laws. They have a place down there. Just basically went to hang out.
Cool. Yeah, Florida's a nice place. Nice beaches.
Oh yeah, yeah, they have awesome beaches there.
Work on the tan.
Yeah, get a little darker than I already am.
Yeah, that's my thing. It's like I watch everyone else melt in the heat, and I'm just loving it. I just get darker. I don't got to worry about burning or anything. So
That's right. Yeah.
So Diesel, tell me a little bit about yourself. You know, first of all, everyone's going to ask who doesn't know you. You know, when you came out, your mama and you're sitting there in the hospital or wherever you were born, they called you Diesel.
Yes, sir. They called me Diesel. I came out with a mohawk too.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
I always said I should have been a rock star, but it never ended up going that way.
You still can. There's never too late, man.
I could.
So where were you born? Where's birthplace?
Yeah, my birthplace is in Africa, Kenya, Nairobi. Moved down here when I was 8 or 9. Moved to Ontario, and then basically grew up in Oakville all my life. Met my wife now and moved to the Hamilton area.
So let's go back in time here. You know, Kenya is a predominantly English-speaking colonized country, but there is traditional, there is, you know, tribal. You know, your family background, what did your parents do back in Kenya? What was your guys' family history?
Well, so my dad's a mechanic, and he had his own basically place, shop. He ran out of home, had a tow truck, the whole nine. He also worked with the government in Kenya. So he got a lot of pretty sweet jobs, you could say. My mom was just a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, don't say just, hey, it's an important job. Yeah, be careful. Mama's going to hunt you down.
She was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, she's a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, there's no just in front of that one ever.
No. Yeah, definitely not.
So, you know, what was the deciding factor for them to leave Kenya? I mean, you're 8 years old, 9 years old. I mean, that's not a baby. It's kind of like, you know, you're already in school. You're already, you know, established. Did you have brothers and sisters as well?
I do have a younger brother. He's 4 years younger.
Oh, so he was like 4.
Yeah. So their whole deciding factor was just things were getting a little bit bad over there. And nothing was ever going to change. You know what I mean? Like, it's a third world country. It's as good as it gets, as good as you make it, really. And they were just kind of looking out for our futures to give us something better, my brother and I. So they decide they either had a chance to go to Australia or Canada, and they chose Canada. So,
you ever bitter about that at all?
A little bit, yeah. Now I am. But when I was younger, I didn't really know, right? When I was younger, didn't really know.
Well, there's more work in Canada, so it's probably better in the long run, but Australia honestly, sure is pretty.
Yeah, no, and I mean, everything's pretty great here.
And when you guys came, your mom and dad, did your dad continue being a mechanic here, and
Yes,
your
he
mom
did.
a stay-at-home mom, or what did they end
No,
up doing?
so my dad continued, like, he came as a mechanic and continued working as a mechanic. My mom actually went into the hospital industry. She is a chef at the Oakville Hospital. She's
Oh,
been
awesome!
there since we came here. So she was at the
Wow.
old hospital first, which was uh, down by Lakeshore in Oakville, and then
Hmm.
they moved it up to Third Line, which is the new one now. And she's been there for over, I think, 30 somewhat years.
Oh man, she's just racking up that pension, that hospital pension.
Yeah, yeah,
So are they
yeah.
both still working, or are they retired now?
No, my mom's still working. My dad, I have no clue. I actually haven't talked to him in a few years.
Oh, did he didn't stick around for the whole picture?
No, me and him had a falling out, and
Yeah.
just stopped talking to him, basically.
Yeah, it happens, man. It happens. Sometimes you just
Yeah,
need a break. You need a break from each other sometimes.
yeah.
So, you guys come to Canada. You're 8 years old. You got a little brother. He's 4. Dad's turning wrenches. Mom's working. So, the typical Canadian immigrant life. Everyone's at work. Kids are at home going to
Yep.
school. What was that transition like for you? Was it tricky? Was it okay?
Yeah, it was, as much as I like try to remember it, it was pretty easy. I mean, going, like, as a kid, you always get picked on because
Mm-hmm.
you're from a different place. Um, so it was tougher that way. But then at the same time, when we were here, because they kept on upgrading their home situation, or our home situation,
Mm-hmm.
we moved schools a few times while we were younger too. So that kind of made it a lot harder as well with friends,
Mm-hmm.
and getting picked on again. But it was it was a little tough, I would say, yeah. But I mean, I've learned a lot through it, and become the person I am today because of it.
Yeah, that's so typical. I went to like 4 or 5 different elementary schools, and it wasn't like it was exactly what you said. Like, when you first come to Canada, you're like in a little tiny. Oh, we lived in a hotel. We were refugees, so we lived in a hotel for a bit, and then we went to like a little place, and then we moved. Mom and dad started making more money, moved to a new house, then you move to a different house in a better neighborhood.
Yeah,
Like, immigrant parents always want to move into like a good neighborhood. That's like the
yeah,
dream. Get into a
yeah.
good, safe neighborhood and live the Canadian dream, but it takes a few stops along the way.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and the thing I think they don't realize, even though that they're trying to make a better life for all of us, is that it was hurting us at the same time too.
Hmm.
I guess they don't like, that's not a concern for them, or never really thought about it. But sometimes parents should actually give that a consideration, right, before they start
It's
moving.
tricky.
Or
Well, here, I got a
yeah,
question for you then that's kind of personal to me, because this is kind of
yeah,
from my life as an immigrant kid. I found that I had better friends, like closer friends, or like nicer friends, even maybe in like the poorer neighborhoods, in the poorer schools that I was at, like friends that I'm still friends with today, and then kind of when we moved up the social ladder into like these nice schools. In the nice schools, it was like all white, and I was like one of the only brown kids in like in these like richer neighborhoods. And I didn't find that I made friends as easily. It was a little bit harder, and I didn't get like the trends and like what was fashionable, and like everyone's wearing like Vans, and I'm getting no name Zeller's shoes.
byway
Like it.
stuff.
Yeah, Byway and Sandstore and all that stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And my parents don't really get it because they didn't grow up with that
yeah.
mentality of like fashion and name brands. And so like I kind of hated the schools I was at when I started moving up with my parents. Like, it's not like I moved up, but my parents would be like, "Oh, now we're in a good
Yeah.
neighborhood," and I didn't get it. What was it like for you? Did you have any of those problems, or
So,
was it easy?
so yeah, so when we moved here, we were in Oakville, and Oakville is like a rich kind of neighborhood.
Hmm.
Um, I don't even know how we actually fell in here, to tell you the truth, but it was like a luck thing. Or uh, but yeah, so we came to Oakville, which was already a rich neighborhood, sort of, and the schools we went to, there were no schools like you were saying where it's a little bit slummier or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were all you went in there, it was all white kids. I
Yeah.
was the only brown kid really that I can remember when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And as we started getting older, then you would see, an
Yeah.
African kid or whatever, and it started to get a little bit more
Even.
diverse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so my whole thing was I dealt from it right from day one. Was I didn't really have any good friends. It was just really
Mm-hmm.
getting picked on from the start, right? Because I
Yeah.
also had kind of an accent, didn't really speak proper English.
Yeah.
So
African English is different. It's like almost like a British colonial
British.
accent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's British, yeah. So it was a little tough because kids are like, "Oh, where are you from?" kind of thing, and you're not from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
And you're eating weird food at lunch because your mom just makes you this, normal like lunch from your country, and everyone else is eating bologna sandwiches and
Yeah, no,
kangaroo dips.
actually,
And
no, actually, she didn't. She actually just made us sandwiches when we went to
oh
school,
yeah,
which
I
was
had.
actually nice. So we kind of fit in there, right?
Yeah, that's good. My mom didn't do that. I'd show up with weird immigrant food, and everyone around me would be like, "Ew, what are you eating?" It's like, you're like, "What are you talking about? This is what I eat every day. Like, what do you do?
Yeah,
What's the
yeah,
problem?"
yeah, yeah,
So then, you're coming up and through school. Sounds like you didn't necessarily really dig elementary school too much. What was high school? What was that transition for you like?
yeah. So when I got into high school, I was getting into a lot of trouble. I was finding trying to fit in with a crew,
Mm-hmm.
and I was finding I was getting into a lot of trouble. Got in trouble with the police and stuff like that. Um, but so grade 9 happened. That's basically I was just trying to figure out who I was and try to get into somewhere where I could be something.
Have some
As a kid, you're
friends.
trying to,
Yeah.
yeah, you're trying to be like the cool person or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always trying to get in trouble to do that. Ended up getting into a decent group, and then yeah, it kind of took my whole life kind of took off a little bit better than my elementary school. Still not as good as it could have been, but better.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't suffering as much, and it wasn't getting picked on as much.
Yeah. Well, when there's a couple of ways you can go when you get picked on. You can start to hide, or you can start to
Yeah,
work out.
yeah, yeah,
You hit the gym. You start trying to be like, okay, you know what? I had enough of this.
yeah.
So, high school. What did you like about high school? Did you get through grade 9 to grade 12 okay? You graduated all right, or was it a bit of a struggle?
Yeah, school for me has always been a struggle. I've never been a
Yeah.
person that could sit in front of a teacher or a board. Um, I don't think I was never diagnosed with ADD, but
Seems to fit.
self diagnosis, I could say, is just
Hmm.
I don't have that ability to sit in front of a board and learn. I'm more of a hands-on person. Uh,
Hmm.
that's how I've always learned, and so school was really tough. Uh, Again, try getting in trouble with kids, and then not being able to do homework or just couldn't focus,
Hmm.
and getting in trouble at home as well because I wasn't getting my homework done.
Yeah. What'd your
Uh,
parents think about this whole thing?
oh man, it was horrible. So I was one of those. I don't know if you ever heard of this, but I actually had a book where I had to sign. So the teacher had to sign saying that this was the homework, bring it home, and make sure I did the homework. And my parents had to sign it so the teacher could see it. It was crazy. I don't think any other kid I've ever seen go through that, but
I know exactly what you're talking about, man. Don't worry.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
crazy Portuguese parents,
so then you're coming out of high school now. It sounds like you're getting through it. You just want to get through high school. You just want to get the heck out of there, right? Well,
Yeah,
did you have any type of a plan whatsoever?
I
Or you just
didn't.
wanted to finish?
Yeah, I just wanted to get out of there and kind of start life. And as soon as I finished high school, see, I started working out a little bit late. So I started working out after high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where I kind of went into security work. I was doing bouncing at clubs and bars and stuff like that. So
Did you do that for a
yeah,
long time? Because I know guys that, I mean, they love it. Even, as they get older, they still pick up bouncing work and nightclub door duty, kind of off and on just for some extra cash. Some people really love that gig. Did you like it or
yeah.
did you?
I actually loved it. Yeah, I was really good at it.
Hmm.
But I actually still have my security license till today. I kept it just in case if I ever had issues with a
Hmm.
career, that I always had something to back up and fall
Hmm.
onto. Not that that's a career, but at least it could get me through hard times if I ever needed.
Yeah,
Um,
and clubs always run no matter what kind of thing. There's always a
yeah,
need for
or
bouncers.
yeah, bouncers or even like security for at the malls or whatever, right? There's always
Yeah.
security needed somewhere. So yeah, I'd been bouncing since I was in my 20s till let's say 35. I'm 42 now.
Yeah. And
So
was
yeah.
that kind of like your full-time gig? Like, was that kind of what you did, or did you have a few hustles on the go?
Yeah, so for at first I was just doing the bouncing, then I was also working in the restaurant industry. I started off as a cook and then worked my way up, and I actually realized I was good at that and continued in that direction as well. So I was doing cooking during the day, and then at night would go and work at a club or a bar somewhere. And yeah, did that for a whole bunch of years.
And during this time, did you have a girlfriend? Were you by yourself? Did you get a spouse or a partner? Did someone lock you down?
I had a few. Well, being in the club industry, it's you're having so much fun. I mean, you're always meeting girls, and I used to work at a
Partying.
couple of yeah, I used to work at a
Mm.
couple of strip clubs too. So it was a lot of fun working there, meeting new people. But yeah, I mean, I did have full-time girlfriends at certain points in my life, but
Mhm.
uh, I always, yeah, I did
It
have
didn't.
for a period of
Nothing.
time.
Nothing permanent. Nothing permanent.
No, nothing permanent. No, till I met my wife. Actually, I met her at a club as well.
Yeah. And so, when did you get married?
I got married 2 years ago in April.
Oh yeah. Was it before your 40th or after your 40th?
It was before my 40th.
So you were able to get married before 40. You did it, man. You did it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
I got I that was important for me too because I wanted to get my second marriage done before 40.
Oh, so yeah, you've had two marriages.
Yeah, yeah, it was number 2. So the
All
first one was
right.
like a trial run. So uh,
Those are always good, right?
yeah, it was all right. I got a couple great kids out of it, so it was all good.
Hey, that's all right. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing, Diesel's coming up, comes to Canada, goes to school, doesn't really dig it, doesn't really like high school, but he's out. And now he's okay. I'm gonna start working, making some cash, living your life, having some fun. Um, I haven't heard a single word about trades or welding or anything. So, in this journey of, this is a span of like 15 years from like, a kid to, bouncing until you're 35, working clubs, working restaurants, what happened? Like it sounds like you were perfectly happy and everything was going well. What something must have occurred in your life to make you look for a different job.
Yeah, so I was just kind of so when I met my current wife, um, I was always working weekends, and she was just not having any of it, especially not
Hmm.
working at the clubs anymore. She's just like, oh, we don't spend time together, this and
Hmm.
that. So she's like, you know what, you gotta start making a change. And I was like, okay. So I gave up the club industry stuff, and then I was like, you know what? I don't like working weekends either. Like it's just stupid. I'm working every weekend or holidays, and that's being in the restaurant industry. You're always those are
Hmm.
your busiest times, right? So I had decided that I just didn't want to do it anymore, and kind of decided that I was going to go into um, a shop. just kind of try myself at going into any shop and see how I would do. I've always been mechanically inclined, so it wouldn't have been a
A big
challenge, like
stretch.
big,
Yeah.
yeah, you know. And so yeah, my first time I went, applied at this machine shop, they gave me a chance, learned a bunch from there, and just kept moving on from shop to shop till I learned more and more and wasn't just stuck to one thing. Because usually when you get to a shop, it's like, yeah, they know you're new. They'll just teach you a few little things and that's it. You're stuck at that position for however long.
Hmm.
Sometimes you may not even move up. So I was finding whenever I would get to a spot where I was plateauing in my learning, I would look for something more and want to learn a little bit more in that trade. And that's how I actually got into welding. So I never welded a day before this, and
Hmm.
I got onto the job, the place where I'm at right now. It's called Solid Machine and Hydraulics. I work there full time. So they do a lot of welding, but they have in-house welders, and I just kept watching people doing it and stuff. And then one guy decided he was going to quit, and then there was no more welder, and I decided to just pick it up and try it. And at first, yeah, like everybody, it's a challenge. It's like you don't know what you're doing, especially if you've never uh, even touched a torch or picked up a
Hmm.
MIG gun, whatever, right? It's different.
Hmm.
So it was a big learning curve for me, and everything I did, like at that time, I wasn't even into YouTube or anything like that. It was basically literally picking it up and just welding something, and that's how I basically learned. And then when it came to TIG welding, that's when I started to use YouTube a little bit more, um, and I went on from there.
So when you started in the machine shop, did you kind of think that you might be a machinist for a trade? I mean, that's a good trade. I know how to run most machines in a machine shop, CNC equipment. And as much as I've learned and loved to use machines, I could never see myself as a machinist. Did you think about that as a career, or did you not know how that would turn out?
Yeah, so at first that's the way I was leaning. I was leaning towards going to be a machinist. And that's why I was like trying to learn whatever I could, jumping from shop to machine shop. And then when I got this chance to weld, everything just changed for me. It was like I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. Like you get to stick two metal pieces together, like and then just building stuff was even more so, like, oh my God, like your mind is just blown that you can actually take two pieces of metal and join them together.
Hmm.
So once that happened, it was like I never even looked back at machining at that point. Even though every day I do machining and mechanical work at work, but I do a lot of welding as well. Like, so I'm the main welder there now. Like, so one of my bosses, he is also a certified welder, but he decided to step back once I uh, learned and took everything on myself, like getting
Hmm.
all my tickets here and there. Um, they decided to kind of not even want to do it. They had no interest after that.
Hmm. It's interesting. My first job ever, when I started off as a laborer, because I didn't know I was going to get into welding necessarily, and just started off being like the grunt carrying grinders around and sweeping up when I was 17, was in a shop called Superior Hard Chrome, and they were a custom hydraulic and cylinder company. So you in that type of shop, you learn mechanics, machining, hydraulic systems, and welding, and like all the things required to make custom cylinders. And we
Yeah,
would make custom cylinders for the mining industry here in Saskatchewan. And that's where I cut my teeth and learned how to weld, was building cylinders. And so like learning how to weld chrome, we're learning how to weld nickels and cylinders and shafts. And like the really finesse of building and welding cylinders, because you can't warp them, you can't
yeah,
wreck them. Like, I mean, the tolerances are in the thousands, and you
yeah,
can't screw that up, man. And sometimes they need a lot of weld, and you can't wreck that cylinder or the seals or the finish, or having a arc strike somewhere by accident, like the whole thing's garbage, right? Like,
Yeah, if you
so,
hit the rod.
oh man, like, I mean, that's a big deal if you strike that shaft. Like, I mean, then you're gonna have to rip that chrome off and machine it down, build it back up. Like, I mean, you
That's
might as well
right.
just throw it away and make a new one, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so I know the type of work that you're doing, and I found it really, really interesting. I felt like I plateaued at that shop and then left. I was there almost 10 years though, which is the longest job I've ever had since. Like,
Hmm.
I usually only last about 5 to 7 years before I'm like, okay, I gotta try something else. How long have you now been with this company that you're at?
Well, actually, so this is the longest I've ever worked at a place in my whole entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I've been here about 6, going on 7 years now. Um, and every day, I shouldn't say I've plateaued. I've learned quite a bit, but to the point where I know how to do pretty much everything in the shop. Of course, there's some machines like CNC machines that I would love to work on, but I would never get
Mm-hmm.
the chance. Just because the job that I do is everything in that shop is mostly on me. So like we work for Dofasco. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So our main contract is Dofasco, and most of their stuff that they send to the shop is mostly everything I do. The rest of the guys there, like there's maybe a team of 5 guys there. The rest of them are machinists, but they just do little parts here and there. I do everything from mechanical to the cylinders, like you were saying, machining, and all the parts that I do are huge. So they're like the big hubs for the trucks. I got to rebuild when they come in. I got to refurbish them. I don't know if you have ever seen. So you know me as TIG Devil, but I also have another um, Instagram called Destructive Asylum 13,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I post all my stuff that I do at work. Um, all the big hubs that I've worked on, and any kind of weird looking stuff, huge stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'll post it on there. And the TIG Devil is mostly for my art. But yeah, so I learn a lot at this place, even though I've gotten to where I've gotten. I still try to, even if I stop learning, I try to pick up new things. So, like I was saying, at first when I first started welding, I was only doing MIG. Then it was like, oh, I want to learn something else, and got into stick, which I absolutely love. It's one of my
Mm-hmm.
favorite things to do is stick weld.
Yeah, I love stick
Um,
welding too.
yeah, so then after that, it was like, oh, I met a guy named Mattia Bros, who had passed away, and he got me into TIG welding actually. So after that, it was like, oh my God, there's a whole other side of it. Like there's the art side of it, and yeah. So it kind
All
of
right.
just spun out of control, really, for me.
All right, well, this is an awesome time to take a break, right at this stop, and we'll come back and kind of see where this path is going now, after you've kind of gotten into the TIG world. And, it's interesting that you have two Instagram accounts for kind of the two aspects of your life, and we can talk about that a little bit after. So
Sure.
thanks for following, everyone. Make sure you stay tuned. We'll be right back here with Dsouza after these commercials. And we're back here on the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron, and we have Dsouza coming to us from the Hamilton region, telling us about his career and late start into the welding and steel trades, which is, not that uncommon and something we actually promote all the time because we have such a crazy shortage of welders coming out in the next 10 years that if every high school kid in Canada right now signed up for welding, it's not enough. So we also need people to like jump careers, like you did. Do you ever miss Diesel, the nightlife, the club life, or are you done with it? You're good.
Uh, I used to I used to have a lot of fun, so I can always say, yeah, I will always miss it, but it will never be the same. I would never go back to it just because it
You're an old
was,
man now.
yeah, yeah, that's it. I would never go back to it, but yeah, I can say I do miss it. I did have a lot of good times.
hmm So, now you've worked in the shop 6 years. You've learned MIG, then stick. In there's flux core. In there, you probably picked up some stainless. There's a little
Yeah.
bit of work, but most manufacturing shops, and there's always an asterisk, but most manufacturing fab shops don't touch TIG. There's no reason for TIG. it's too slow, it's too expensive of setups, too finicky. You got to worry about so many things like cleanliness and timing and skill level. Really, so and it's from my experience, you're not doing TIG unless it's something extremely specific. And I
Mhm.
know I've had guests on the show who that's all they do for their lives is do TIG welding, and there are those jobs out there, but I would say they're the minority.
Right.
In your shop, is there a lot of TIG welding that needs to be done?
No, there isn't. So,
Yeah.
so this is the thing. Once I met Mattia Bros and saw what he was doing with his art, I just kind of got crazy about it, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go purchase a TIG welder.
Hmm.
So I talked to my work and I said, hey, you know what? I'm gonna bring a TIG welder and I'm gonna purchase it myself. Are you guys cool with it? If you guys can run me a 220 plug, blah blah blah. And they were like, at first, yeah, maybe kind of thing. Weren't sure about it. I didn't tell them what I was doing with it. They had no
Hmm.
idea. Um, so after a couple of months of looking at what I wanted and what would suit me best, um, and the day I was going to go buy it, the boss is like, you know what, maybe I'll buy it and we'll keep it as a work thing and we can use it, whatever. And I said, no, no, I'm going to pay for this. It's going to be mine. And if you guys need something done, I'll do it. No problem. So I just went that route. And yeah, they basically pay for the materials if there's stuff that needs to be done on job, which I've kind of created more stuff because we used to send a lot of our stuff out if it needed to be TIG welded to another shop.
Hmm.
Um, so now, since I have taken an interest to that and I was doing more of the art stuff. I was like, you know what? Let me start doing things that we needed in the shop. And I kind of, without telling them, went and started, TIG welding this, whatever need to be TIG welded. And they were like, oh,
Hmm.
actually, that looks pretty good. Maybe we'll just keep it in house then, not send it out, save that money. So I was like, yeah,
Hmm.
okay. So that's how I ended up getting that TIG
Convincing them.
welder in there. Yeah.
What kind of TIG welder did you buy? What was that? You said you shopped around for 3 months. What did you end up getting?
Yeah, I ended up getting the Everlast 255 EXT.
Yeah. How do you like it?
I love it. It's great, great machine.
Yeah. Never any problems with it?
Not yet. I mean, it took me a long time to figure out what I was doing when it came down to AC. I was watching a lot of videos and trying to figure out how to weld aluminum was insane without having a teacher. You're
Hmm.
going at it and you're not at first my whole issue was not getting that puddle hot enough, and I was just kind of sticking the rod in there and it'd bubble up and all that.
Just turn
So
black and ugly.
yeah, so I was getting very frustrated uh because it just wasn't working out, and I was trying for a good month and a half before I actually did an okay weld, I would say. And I did
Hmm.
a long pass of it. And I would keep practicing every Saturday. I would go in the shop on my own time and just keep plugging away till I actually got it. Then I made, people would make cubes out of stainless steel.
Hmm.
So I just cut one and made it out of aluminum. That's what I would do. And I kept making cubes till I got pretty decent at it. And when I finally did it, I was like, okay, cool. And I posted it on. I'd also post all the mistakes that I did, like my whole journey of trying to TIG weld aluminum. I posted all kinds of posts, like, trying to get better at it. And yeah, it took a long time.
So were you always on Instagram? Like you said, you weren't really into YouTube and stuff, or like when were you always a part of the social media community, or did you kind of plug in with the welding?
Yeah, so I'm kind of late to the whole Instagram thing. I only started, I think, maybe 2.5 years ago on Instagram, and yeah, it was started with the whole welding
Hmm.
community, and that's what kind of got me going too. Was on social media was more the welding side of everything.
And did you learn quite a bit from the welding community online?
I did, yeah. I was always asking people questions, which for the most part, most of the people that I talk to and still talk to till today are amazing,
Yeah.
willing to give you information and actually take their time in their day to answer questions. Because sometimes, yeah, I know people are busy and they're working and stuff, and it can be tough when someone new is coming up and like, oh, I need help with this and that, and they're like, man, like I'm busy, kind of thing. And for people to actually take time out of their day to help me out was amazing. And I found there's quite a few people like that.
Yeah, it's a big part of the community life. Like you can say that you're into the community, but it is a time investment. Like I get emails or texts or DMs in my Insta being like, "Hey, I got this idea," or "Hey, what do you think about that?" It's like sometimes I want to be like, "Yeah, whatever, just leave them on read." But then it's like, nah, like I do stuff like this because I'm trying to help the community. I can't just like abandon it. I gotta like
Yeah,
follow through.
yeah, yeah. And that's basically because I saw how, like, there was a few people that helped me out, and at the same time there was a lot of people too that were asked, and they were kind of like, like giving me a runaround kind of thing, because sometimes people are scared that once you learn something, it's like they're gonna
They're gonna,
lose
yeah, you're gonna step on their
business, or
turf or something.
yeah, and I've never been that kind of person. And even till today, actually, anytime if I want to do an art piece or something and I've seen someone kind of already attempted or did it, I will always contact them first and say, hey, are you okay if I try to do this? Or, I had someone contact me. I don't know if you know Doug Rogers from Piston Face.
Okay.
So I was talking to him one day and he's like, oh, you know what? I would like my logo done. And I said to him, nobody's ever done your logo. And he said, no, there was a guy that did it. And he goes by his Instagram as Dabindadio.
Okay.
And I said, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to touch it just because I know him. And he's actually one of the guys that have
Oh.
helped me out when I
Hmm.
first started. Like he was giving me information, showing me things, like would go on live Instagram and, you know, tell me do this, do that, help me with settings, all kinds of stuff. So as soon as he mentioned his name, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, especially
Hmm.
his, right? So
Hmm.
it took me a couple of months, I would say, and then I was like, you know what, let me ask him and see if he minded, because I know he did a piece for him. And when I reached out to him, he's like, dude, everybody has their own
Spin,
yeah, like I
style.
welcome it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, awesome, that's so awesome of you to let me attempt this. So I haven't yet. It's kind of busy right now, but it's in the progress. I have something special coming up soon.
Oh, oh. Now I'm curious. Now I'm curious.
Yes. So I actually just got what's it called?
A
Sponsored by
commission?
Yes Welder.
Oh yeah, I did. I saw that on your on your Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, so now because I have so many ideas, and the thing that's holding me back, I find, is I'm always having to, anything I need to cut, I always have to send it to a company, and I do all the drawing, send it to them, pay them for a minimum order, which I sometimes
Hmm.
only need one piece, but they want like $100 and something to get this one piece cut. It's like I can't charge someone else once I'm done the art piece for
Yeah.
what you cut. It's just not worth it. So yeah, Yes Welder decided to give me a shot, and I got some things coming up.
Oh,
I got
awesome. That's super exciting.
yeah,
I know that in the email that you sent in to Daniela, who sets up our shows, you said, if you're interested in getting a commission done. I already replied to her. I was like, yes, because I got an office in Milton that has like no art, right? Like, and
okay,
I hate,
yeah,
I love art. I got art in my room here. I get people to make it, and I don't like going to the store to buy art. I like people making art for me. So everything in here has been like either made for me or given to me from an artist.
hmm
And my office in Milton, it's like blank. I got like a map of Canada with like a broken frame. Like, I mean, like it's like I need something nice. So, the inspector, I think the weld inspector, he got
yeah,
into art, yeah, and on
yeah.
Instagram. So he commissioned me a piece of hummingbird made out of like brass and stuff. It looks really nice. So that's supposed to be coming to my office. I paid for that. And so I said to Daniela to tell you, like, yeah, I would love some. I just don't know what. Like, I'm not very artistically minded. Like when Al was like, hey, I'll make you something. I was like, okay, well, you just think of something. And he was like, well, what do you like? And I was like, oh, I like birds. And so he did a bird thing. Awesome. I'm happy. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
but, uh, I might have to get on your list here at some point.
yeah. Anytime. Let me know. We can always come up with ideas of, we could talk one day and whatever. I'll be happy to make you an art piece.
So, in your world now, you got, Destructive Asylum 13 Fab, and then you got TIG Devil. One is
Yeah.
more like your work life and the stuff you're doing in your shop, and the other side is your art side. Which, where do you feel that your desire, your passion's pulling you towards? Do you still see yourself working in a fab shop in 5 years and moving on up, maybe becoming manager or owner or starting your own thing? Or now that you've gotten the art bug, do you feel like you would love to kind of do that full time?
Yeah, so since I got into the art, I've always loved it even when I wasn't into it, but now that I'm kind of getting decent at it, I wouldn't say good, but I think I'm decent at it. Could get better. I'm looking to go that route. I'm not necessarily saying that I would never, like, I love fabricating stuff. It is fun to make stuff, and customers come to me sometimes be like, oh, can you put this together, or try to build something for this, and for you actually use your head to try to figure out, okay, well, I'll do this and that to make that. It's a challenge, which I like challenges all the time.
And it's really
So for me,
rewarding,
yeah, and when it's done, it's like, oh wow, you know what, that turned out pretty cool, kind of thing. With the art, it's always like, okay, you kind of already know, if somebody says, I want this, well, it's going to be that. You know what I mean? Like, where with the fabrication, it's could be different. They could say, I want this, but it will look like something else.
It's got to
You
go the
don't
way the
know.
job has to go. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, it's always something different, right? You never
hmm
know what to expect, kind of thing, I'll say.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I want to mount this on the side of the wall, and then you go put a lag hole in the wall, and there's no supports in there. It's like, oh
Yeah.
well, I guess we're putting in supports now and back plates, and now we got to do this and braces, and like.
Yeah, it just kind of jumps out of control, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. Now the art stuff, do you only do stuff that people ask you, or do you just kind of keep making stuff and then do you sell it? You got a website, Etsy, like how do you run your art stuff?
Yeah, so I do stuff on my own. Haven't had a lot of luck selling any of my art that I've made on my own. Um, I am on Etsy. I'm not getting any hits on there, so I'm just like, I don't know what to do at this point. But
hmm
most of the work I get is basically from people asking that they want something, or I'll be talking to someone and be like, hey, are you interested in this? Or like, I mean, even when I go to the gym, if I see someone with a sports team logo and he's covered head to toe, I'm like, oh, this guy obviously loves that team. And I'll approach him and say, hey, this is kind of what I do. Check out my Instagram if you're ever interested. I'd be psyched to make you a piece, and I've got quite a lot of business that way.
So have you ever had to make a Saskatchewan Rough Riders logo for anybody?
I have not. No, I was actually going to do a Hamilton Tiger Cats one just to see if anybody wanted to buy one. But yeah, no, I haven't.
Oh man, I'm like the biggest Rider fan ever. I got like 6 season tickets, man. Like, oh
So maybe that's one
yeah.
of the pieces I could make for you.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put that in Milton. I think I'd keep that one in here.
Well, you can have two.
Yeah, I mean we're gonna stomp Winnipeg this weekend, and then we'll be in Hamilton in 2 weeks, and so we'll be there.
Yeah,
I don't
nice.
know. I don't know if you follow CFL football at all, but
I don't. I'm an NFL guy.
oh, who's your NFL team?
Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, don't nobody likes Dallas. That's not a
I
thing.
know.
Nobody likes Dallas. That's not even a thing. The
Yeah,
only team that likes Dallas is Dallas.
ever since I was a kid, I've always liked that team. I've never ever
I'm a
gotten into
Cleveland Browns fan. I got an autographed Chubb football right
Oh,
there
us.
from Nick Chubb, and I go to the games. I go down to the States almost every year to a Cleveland Browns game.
Yeah, so actually we're going to a Buffalo game. So uh for my 40th birthday, my wife actually got us tickets to go to the Dallas game. We went
Mm,
to Texas. That's why I was telling you I love Texas so much.
yeah.
Could actually see myself moving there. But yeah, we usually go to Buffalo games every year. And because of COVID, we missed 2 years in a row. So on the
Yeah.
19th, we're actually going to go watch the Bills play the Panthers.
Oh yeah. Well, that's only like an hour drive for you from where you're at, so an hour
Not
and a
even,
half.
it's like 40 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're super close to the border.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was at Niagara. Well, like I mean, my office is in Milton. It's right by there. I think I'm like 40 minutes to, not even 30 minutes to Hamilton, and we went to Niagara, and it's like, well, there's Buffalo, like literally right there. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you come down here a lot, or?
yeah, I'm there every couple months. I'm there next week, so
Oh
like,
man.
yeah, I come down to my, like, my staff is all there, right? So my staff's in the area, and my head
Okay.
office is there. So I got to come down to do work in Milton every couple months. Sometimes I'm there a lot. Sometimes I'm there not as often, but usually every 2 to 3 months I'm there for at least a couple weeks. So
Yeah, well, maybe one day we'll actually get to meet for in person.
yeah, just follow me on Instagram. I always post up, hey, heading to Ontario next week, because there's quite a few people that like to meet up with me for a beer, go to Rad. I mean, I don't ever rent a car when I'm there, so people usually come see me in Milton. We'll go to Rad Brothers or something, have some beers. But
Nice.
I'm always down. I like to
Yeah,
hang
sounds
out.
good. Yeah.
It can't be all work, right? So
That's true. That's no fun.
so with your art, what's your favorite style of art? Like I've seen what you do. You do a lot of the flat, the colored stainless TIG. It looks like that you're doing on like
Yeah.
a 2B, shined
Mm,
stainless. And
yeah.
is that your gig? Is that your favorite stuff to do? Have you gotten into sculptures? Have you gotten into shapes or 3D at all? Like where's your art lie?
Yeah, so I tried my hand at a piston skull, and I actually have to say, though, you really have to have patience for that, um, which something I don't have. And I was giving out a shout out to the piston face guys. Like, it's insane. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of drilling and dremeling, and it's it takes time. And
Hmm.
I tried it. Mine didn't turn out as great as theirs, but it turned out all right. Put a mohawk on it, and but yeah, I'm looking more. So I'm I'm trying to my. I don't know if you saw. I did a Bears TIG art sign for Brian DePaul at
Yeah,
Blue
I see it
Demon.
right here. Yeah, I see it right here. Yeah.
Okay, so if you see, it's kind of inlaid.
Hmm.
So there's a piece on top, and then I TIG welded on top so it kind of looks, I wouldn't say 3D, but more maybe a
A layer
2D,
to it. Yeah,
a
yeah.
layer, yeah. So I think I'm gonna start going that route from now on. Is I'm gonna start building on top of the plate, basically anything I do,
Yeah, it looks pretty
and
cool, man. I like that.
and that's why I got the plasma cutter as well. So that's kind of gonna help me achieve a little bit more of my style.
Yeah, the plasma technology is always getting better and better too, and the plasma machines get smaller and smaller. And what did I see the other day? And I know it might just be one of those like junk Instagram commercials that come up, because like, you follow so many tools and tradespeople that you always get those like buy this Instagram
Yeah,
commercials. But it was
yeah.
actually one that got my interest. I was like, what is that thing? It's like a portable CNC plasma cutter. So like it's just
What?
got a magnet base, and you just snap it onto the table, and it's got an arm, and it'll cut your plasma shapes, and it's got like a 18-inch reach where it'll just,
Wow.
and you can just pick it up and go drop it on something, and then cut it out. I was like, that is smart. I don't know if that thing's real or not. I went to their website. It's like $600. I was like, I might have to get one of those, because one of the problems with me is like I want a plasma cutter in my shop, like a like an actual bed, right, to do
Yeah,
cutout shapes. But I don't
yeah.
got the room. My garage is like full for anyone. Like I just picked up another stupid e-bike the other day. I don't know why, but I got like things sitting on top of things in my garage. My car doesn't even fit in my garage. I have to have like another. I had bought like a portable shed for my cars. So I'm stuffed with tools. So where am I going to put a plasma table? Like I just don't got the
Yeah,
room unless I buy a new house, which
yeah.
I might. We're talking about it now, because I'm like, oh, I need like a 50 by 50 garage or something. But I saw this little portable plasma thing. I'm like, man, I could just set this up like just outside, and just lay out a big sheet of steel and just, and then sure, it's annoying. You got to move it, and it can only cut out certain sizes. But I thought that was a pretty good idea. You might want to look
You
into something like that.
you're gonna have to send me that link. I was just gonna say, I was thinking, yeah, that seems pretty cool.
Yeah, and I was like, as robots get better with science, we're gonna see more and more cool stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I always welcome it. Like you, there's only so much you could do as a person, like by hand and
Hmm.
at a certain speed, right? And to a certain perfection, as I could say. But when you have machines doing something, and as long as you have it programmed right, you're always going to get the same thing every single time. So that's always a plus, like a
Hmm.
positive thing.
And it's a different vibe, right? Like I get that some people's art is based off of their hand skills, 100%. But then I've seen some people's art that's based off of CNC perfection, and
Yeah.
I like both sides. Like, I mean, they're both super cool to me, and I get the difference. And I don't think one group needs to like shut down the other one. I mean, there's
No.
room for everybody, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, 100%. Again, like it's a style, right?
Hmm.
Everybody has their own style, and that's basically what it is. Like you keep going at it. It shouldn't have
Yeah.
to be like, oh, because this is taken over, we should shut this person down, kind of thing. Like that's just no.
Yeah, although I feel bad for the all the companies that used to sell like horse-drawn carriages when the car got invented. It's like, dang it, there goes my shop down the tubes. Like, geez, just dumped my last 60 shillings into this carriage company. Like,
Yeah, it's
so
hilarious.
so for diesel now, what's kind of the plan? What are you thinking future wise? You're 42, you still got lots of life ahead of you, although I don't know how hard you ran yourself in your 20s. You might, who knows, but you should have another 40 years in front of you. Where do you see
Right.
yourself going with this? Do you see yourself trying to run both games kind of just forever? What's kind of the angle you want to
Um,
take?
yeah, so I'm actually trying to build my own art studio at home in my garage. That will be my end game basically is once like I'm gonna keep doing both things as long as I can, but I really want to end up doing the art thing in the end.
Hmm.
It's something that I love, something that I have a lot of fun doing. And it's kind of relaxing, like you're not stressed about trying to finish something in time, or I mean, sometimes, yeah, you do have a time span to get something done, but for the most part, people are pretty relaxed, and it's like, oh, take your time to do it. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So yeah, it's relaxing.
I just interviewed someone the other day, talking about art versus industry, and he made this comparison. He's like, I can work on like a tank. Like someone says, okay, I want you to build like a 1,000 liter tank. So I'm gonna get this drawn up in CAD. I gotta order the materials. You gotta get it rolled and sheared and cut and bent and formed. Then you gotta tack it together. Then you gotta weld it together. And you gotta test it. Then you gotta make sure it's good for leaks. Then paint it and you sell it. And you sell this tank. It costs you sell it for $80,000 for this big
Hmm.
1,000 liter tank. And after you take away all the expenses, you made like 10 grand if you're lucky. If you're
Yeah,
lucky, right? Now, that's like 3 weeks of your life, all this work for 10 grand. And that to most people, it's like, well, 10 grand in 3 weeks, that's awesome. But I don't know if people realize how hard a work fabbing and welding is. It's
yeah,
hard to maintain that pace for a long time, right?
yeah.
And then he's like, or I'll go do art and I'll work in my garage and just chill by myself with my art piece for 3 weeks every day for about 4 or 5 hours. I go work on it. I go have a coffee. I work on it. I go for smoke, work on it, kind of go back and forth. And then 3 weeks later, I sell it for 10 grand. And it's like, what
Hmm.
would I rather do? You know? And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's crazy. Like, I guess, if you think about it, like, people like, there's no money in art. Well, I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is.
There is. I mean, there's always people looking for something different and cool. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
even with the whole TIG thing, yeah, there's a lot of people doing it, but everybody does it a little different. Everybody has their own style again, as I'm gonna
Hmm.
say, but that's what makes it unique, and I think when people look at it, they're like, oh, you know what? I've never seen that before. I'm gonna buy that.
Hmm.
So for the
Well,
art thing, I think it could go a long way.
Yeah. What would you say your style is if you had a style? I don't, and I don't know anything about art. Like, well, are you Machiavellian or like, I don't know, like,
I don't even know. Right now, I would just say I'm just like, I guess like some of the other TIG artists that just do the color and flat plate.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to get away from. And that's why now that I have the plasma cutter, I'm kind of trying to build onto the plate and do
Hmm.
something different. That's kind of what I want to be my signature is start building on top of the plate, basically. It will still be flat, but built on top.
Yeah, and I like that look. I've done a few things for people for houses and for like backlit walls where there's
Yeah.
layers, right? You do a few
Yeah.
layers, you sneak a couple LEDs here and there, and it makes things really pop without being, too big, right? So,
Hmm. Yeah. And that's basically what I was thinking too. It's like, yeah, lights, little LEDs could go a long way, right? Make something look totally different.
well, and I learned to wire my own LEDs, and let me tell you, that's a game changer because you go buy LED strips and they cost so much money. But man, you just order raw LEDs from China and you just order the resistors and you run it off 12-volt circuit and you just got to figure it out. Like it's not rocket science. You figure out LEDs are like under $1 a piece if you order them bulk in 100 bags and you can get them. And you just got to wire them yourself, put the little resistor on there, solder it, and then they're
Hmm.
way smaller and you can tuck them in anywhere, right? And it's
Yeah.
once I figured out how to do that, I was like, "Oh man, this I can do all sorts of cool things, and it's way cheaper." LED strips are expensive to buy at the store. It
Oh
doesn't,
yeah. Yeah.
and then you need like a controller and all this crap. It's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
All right, man. So we're coming up to the end of the interview here. I wanted to ask you, like, in terms of advice, if you were looking at someone who was in their, coming up onto their mid 30s, they're like, okay, I want a career change. I've been working out there doing these different things, and I'm maybe looking at welding. That might be a good career. I keep hearing about how there's good jobs and good money, but most people are scared that it's too dirty or too dangerous, or it's not a smart enough job. People have these fears about that with welding. What kind of advice would you give someone looking to get into the weld trades a little later in life?
Yeah, so actually, I just want to go back for a second here, really
Yeah,
quick.
yeah.
So, on the welding thing, like I always did want to weld when I was younger. I was always
Mm-hmm.
fascinated by it, but my dad would always say, "Oh, it's not good for your eyes, so never take welding." That was
Mm-hmm.
something he kind of put into us, right? He was like, "Oh, welding's not good for you. You should never weld. It will ruin your eyes." And then once I started doing it, it was like so far later in my life that it was like that it doesn't do anything. I don't know where he got this perception from or this information from, but it was wrong,
Yeah.
and it made me lose out on a lot of welding that I could have done earlier in my life, really.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so actually, I have a neighbor of mine that just wants to switch careers, and I told him, I actually kind of had someone on Kijiji. I don't know. Do you guys have Kijiji down in
Yeah.
Saskatchewan?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
so they kind of offered me a job basically on Kijiji, and I was like, yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of really like where I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll keep my ears open, and if I have someone, I'll send them your way. And my neighbor was talking to me one day while I was working out on my car. And he's like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving my job because he used to do body work. And he was like, what would you think about welding? And I was like, well, honestly, to tell you the truth, I would get into it. Like, that's where it's at. Like, there's so much you could do. There's all different kinds of things that you can decide to go in any different route in welding.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually is going to school now because I talked to him about it, and I actually gave him that job reference at the same time. I was like, you know what, give these guys a call and see. They're willing to take you in and teach you as well. So it'd be
Awesome.
on job training, right? So yeah, I basically let him know about it and told him like perks and stuff and how to get further ahead in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
like little things that he could do and stuff like that.
And that's interesting because there is perceptions that it's dangerous, and I gotta say, not all of them are wrong. So first of all, your dad in Kenya, he probably saw people welding without welding hoods. When I was working in
That's
Ghana,
true.
when I was in Ghana, people would be welding with no hoods and just staring straight up at the arc, and they go blind. And then that gets spread around that welding makes you go blind. Well, yeah, because you're not wearing any safety gear,
Yeah.
dude. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, the perception, those stories have a way of getting into society and sticking. And I'll tell you, all the listeners out there, I've been welding 27, 28 years now, and I still got 20/20 vision. You know, you just got to wear your PPE. You got to be safe. But you know where I did drop the ball is with my hearing protection. I didn't used to wear my hearing protection all the time, and I got really bad hearing loss right now. So I need hearing aids for my right ear and probably on my left soon. So kids, people, wear your hearing protection. I don't care how uncomfortable they are. Going deaf ain't cool. Tinnitus, the constant ringing in your ears for the rest of your life, is not
Oh,
cool.
I
So
could not imagine it.
oh, it's not fun, you know. Sometimes it's like, why didn't I wear? Because I remember being around these crazy loud work sites and not having my earplugs in, or they'd give them to me, be like, put these in, and I'd be like, they're uncomfortable. I'd take them out. I'd go home at night, and my ears would almost be sore from how
Oh, wow.
loud it was, and that's so dumb. Like, how dumb was I? So I took care of my eyes. I made sure
Yeah.
I didn't lose any fingers, you know. Well, I did pop one off, but they put it back on. Like, they can do lots of cool stuff now. But my hearing, your hearing, they can't fix that. Once it's gone, it's gone. Like,
Yeah. So like I've always been pretty good with the earplugs and the PPE aspect of it. The only thing I would say I have issues with is the breathing part. So not putting on a mask
mm-hmm.
necessarily all the time. Because when you start something, you're like, oh, it's going to take 2 minutes. And then you get into it and it's like 20 minutes later. And now you've just inhaled all these fumes and
Especially stainless, which is, you know, hexavalent chromium 6, which is cancer causing. I used to weld stainless for years without a mask, and then my doctor's like, "You ever seen that movie, Aaron Brockovich, the whole lawsuit for like $100 million about chromium vapors? That's the same stuff you're breathing when you weld stainless." And I was like, "No, God, I'm dumb. Like, don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that."
yeah.
So yeah, wear your masks. I know I was bad for it too, but you know, teaching these last few years that I was teaching, students are way smarter. The younger generation, the Gen Zs, the millennials, the Gen Ys, the Gen Qs, whatever they are now, they're not as dumb as we were. They put their masks on. They want to be
That's
healthy.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they got used to it young, and it
Mhm.
doesn't bother them, right? So
Yeah.
us older guys, we're just stubborn, right?
Yeah. Which is stupid for us though, right?
Which is stupid for us, right? Because then
Yeah.
it's like we're just shaving years off our own lives.
Yeah. You start having health issues and stuff like that. But
Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, man, I've really appreciated you being on the show. Everyone, make sure you go check out TIG Welder online. And what's your other one?
Destructive Asylum 13.
Destructive Asylum 13 Fab, I think is what it says
Yeah.
here.
Fab. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, make sure you follow him up, and he's up here in Canada, doing cool stuff. And you know, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Diesel.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Sure, you want to send any shout outs or hellos to anybody before we go?
Yeah. I'd like to give a shout out to my wife, Natalie Dsouza. And then I want to shout out the Welding Okie and Davin Dadio.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, you know, stay tuned for your episode. We're rolling into Christmas episodes here, so this one's probably not going to be out till maybe in the new year. So my staff will get in touch with you. We'll send you out a little swag bag and a little thank you package from us, and we'll
Awesome.
keep you in time with when it's going to be released. So
Yeah. And let me know whenever you're ready for that piece or 2 pieces, whatever you want.
I will for sure, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be out in Milton next week, so I don't know. I
Yeah,
know a
if you're
couple days that
down,
I'm.
yeah, if you're down in the area, let me know. We'll meet up for sure.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for staying tuned to the show. Thanks for watching and listening to the podcast. You know, we're on every social media medium. We're on YouTube if you want to watch the videos. If you want to just listen, we're on Spotify, iTunes, Google, everything. So, you know, make sure you keep downloading, sharing, and liking our podcast. And, you know, if you guys got any good guests, send them my way. I follow up with every lead you send me. So thanks a lot for tuning in for the CWB Association podcast. We'll check you later.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
listening to the CWB Association Welding Podcast with Max Ceron. If you enjoyed what you heard today, rate our podcast and visit us at cwbassociation.org to learn more. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions or suggestions on what you'd like to learn about in the future. Produced by the CWB Group and presented by Max Ceron. This podcast serves to educate and connect the welding community. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.